Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Festoso back with another card fight Vanguard deck profiles with Jordan Select, Conscribe, and Swisher Shari. This time we are covering Lianorn, set 7 for Stoicheia. I have no idea where I'm recording this the day after I have my weird tooth thing, and I probably shouldn't be talking right now, but you know what? Screw logic, and if I lose my ability to talk, well, that's on me. So, Lianorn set 7 honestly has not had many changes since set 6. It really only has 2 cards different, which is fair. You know, sometimes that happens, but honestly, like, its support feels like Leonor got way too much in set 6, so what Bushi did is they just chose to give us like support in set 7, like you can choose to run it, you cannot choose to run it, and then there's one card you actually want to run, and that's pretty much it. So here's my set 7 version of Leonor, and let's see where this goes. First up we have our starter in Announcing Wind of Spring Kodafi, Gridzo boost 5k shield 6k base, auto road upon 1 second draw card. Standard starter, not just about it, all you need is any starter that really has that draw skill, because one, for some reason, it doesn't go off when you're going first, which I think Bushi made a horrible mistake doing that, but whatever. But then two, like the going second draw thing is just nice to have. You can really make it this any starter as long as it has that skill, but I do like having this one for the theme of Lianorn, even though another Rattle Line requires her. Then we have our Overtrigger in Source Dragon Deity of Belthing's Blessfavor. Gridzo boost 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, you may have one Overtrigger in your deck. Reveals trigger with that card, draw a card, choose one of these summon for the turn. And if you revealed it during your drive check, activate its additional effect, which is during your draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets a crit for the turn, and all of your front units get plus 10. And then if you have damage on the same number of cards your opponent's damage on or more, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. So this motherfucker's an everything bagel, because it's the second you sack it, you get a guaranteed million in draw, whether you sack it offensively or defensively. And then if you sack it offensively, that's another free draw. So a total of 2 draws, 1 million to someone, plus an extra critical to someone, plus 10 to your front row, and a possible heal. I remember in the online game I did with a small actually no, not small spoiler alert. I mean, spoiler alert if you're watching this before the game, but in that match against Youthberg, I remember I sacked the Overtrigger twice offensively on first grade 3 turn. And you know what the stupid part about it was? If it wasn't for that over, that would have been game, because Youthberg would have survived 2 turns later, because they would have had hand cards of not been at 5 damage, because the Overtrigger pushed them to 5 damage, and they would have made a comeback on turn 3, or sorry, turn 5 I think it was, because I know what their top cards were, and it was going to be game right then and there. So Blessfavor being just good is fucking amazing. I mean, the Everything Bagel effect is awesome and all, but like little too broken, and in my opinion, the one that's tied for most broken of the Overtrigger is the only other one being Elder Breath, because honestly, Gale Mage Shell isn't that bad, it just makes the game harder to win, and Armatinoa is, in my opinion, like the least useful Overtrigger, and then Dragveda has like, it's won its way into like tied for 2nd or 3rd place respectively. So yeah, Blessfavor and Elder Breath tied for 1st, because this one does everything, and Elder Breath basically makes it instant game. So one of Blessfavor. Then we have our normal triggers. First up, we have 2 copies of Frenzied Heiress, Gridzo boosted in case shield, 4k power. Front trigger is guard circle, opponent's vanguards are great, they're get plus 5k shield. You know, the front trigger having that's fine and all. Like, the 10k extra plus is nice because it makes your rear guards a lot bigger, though like you don't need it, and that's why I put it at 2 of, because I like having my rear guards be bigger numbers, especially in those cases where one of them does restand and it needs to not be boosted. So I like having the front trigger so I can increase my whole front row instead of just increasing that 1 unit's power. But at the same time, like, I can see why you don't need it, but I do like to run at 2 for that one reason, and the 20k shield's helpful. Then we have our 2 draws in Serene, Maiden, and Lena. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw 2 guard circle, opponent's vanguard to grade 3 guards plus 5k shield. All around, like, that ability is really helpful, because, you know, just having that 10k shield, like I said before, really nice. She ends up being my discard fodder, and not to mention the fact that she gets me hand cards, like, definitely really good, especially if my board gets nuked, allow me to replace my board. Though then again, you don't need too much of her, because this deck has a decent amount of drawing power and like a really good ability to field spam the fuck out of anything. So like Lena doesn't really need to be there. I mean, like, for this deck right here, 1 hand card turns into 2 rear guards essentially. So you don't really need to worry about draw triggers too much, but it is nice to have them just in case. So I like to run them at 2 of. Then we have 7 crits, 3 copies of Melodio Pomaria, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base, standard vanilla crit, and then we have our 4 effect crits, and Espering Maiden Alana, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear at the end battle boosted, put the unit to soul, choose one of your plus 2 for the turn, all around good crit ability, you know, shove to soul, get that 2k, and obviously second the 7 crits is honestly really fun. I mean, like, your opponent, if you're swinging at your opponent for like 50-something with Leanorn with triple drive, they have one of 2 options. Either take it because they're at 1 damage, and then possibly go to 4, because most likely than not, there's going to be 3 crits, especially if you're playing against me, or they're at 2 damage, and then they immediately PG it because they know where this is going, and they know that they're fucked if they take this. So, all around, like, having the 7 crits makes Lianorn a lot dangerous, especially when your opponent knows it. Like, there's always those fun things you can do where if the meta is running 7 crits or like running a lot of crits, what you can do is not run that many number and in fact cut back and put more important triggers like fronts and draws. So people are like, oh, the Vanguard's always going to have extra crits on it, so let's just PG the Vanguard. They waste their time on it, realize that the other numbers are somehow just as big, and then they swing, and then it's game. That's something I really do like to do with fucking with people, where I like to say, oh, this is meta because so-and-so. Okay, here, let me do the opposite of this, and then fuck you over because you think that's what's going to happen. So 7 crits, it's fun, and then when this eventually becomes broken, just run 4 crits, and your opponent will always be dumb enough to PG it because they won't see it coming. So 7 crits. And then we have our 4 heals and Flowery Tone, the card I keep forgetting to change the name from LA Pitchy to fucking this because I keep forgetting that it's there. So grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. Standard heal, we all know why I don't like the effects heals at this point. They're just way too situational in my opinion, and I don't like having to rely on them. But if you want the effect heals, you go ahead and run them, but I do prefer Flowery Tone. Then we have our grade 1s. And first up, obviously, leading the pack of grade 1s, we have our PG and Custodial Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 5-0 shield, 6k base, continuous stun before sounds the deck, and auto when it's put on guard circle. Choose your units that cannot be attended to battle, and if your hand does 2 or more cards, a card from your hand discarded. Standard PG, not special about it. Basically, what that means, if this is only one of the cards in your hand, when you place it on guard circle, you do not have discard. And that's honestly an amazing skill because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, which this deck does have a issue of doing, where you want to rush like as soon as physically possible. And then, once the PGs come down, your opponent starts living and they start on the counter attack. Obviously, having this PG to help defend you is really nice because, you probably committed most of your guarding power to rear guard, especially if you're me and you play this deck, and most of the time your hand cards are between 1 and 3 on your first grade 3 swing before you start checking triggers. So yeah, having this PG is really nice for backup, especially if you're going second, because your opponent might kill you before then. So 4 Custodial Dragon, really nice to have and prevents me from being stupid and killing myself. Then we have our normal... Fuck, I forgot to put this first. So we have 2 copies of Ensemble of Smiles Amalie. She's a grade 1 with boost, 5k shield, 8k base, and auto rear when she would boost. If you have another grade 1 or less rear guard, AK almost all the time, she'll get another +2 for the battle. And then if you boosted a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with her ability, card +1, soul +1, draw a card. Okay, now I'm really glad I didn't use her ability on the rear guard that I was boosting that happened to be grade 3 because I completely forgot it had to be specifically a Vanguard. So, all around, pretty decent skill, like... It's a 10k booster guaranteed as long as you have another grade 1, and that's pretty often going to happen with the grade 1 rush and everything. And then not to mention that if you are on Lianorn, Karen +1, Soul +1 gets that draw. I did say before she was probably like the least useful grade 1 I've ever seen and probably the one I would never run. And then I ended up running her, and then slowly over time, granted it's only happened twice, but the fact I've used her ability twice and it's been the reason I've won has been very helpful because she got me a hand card that ended up either turning into guard fodder or being like a specific rear guard I needed for the next turn because maybe my board got nuked and then I happened to draw into it. So around 2 of Amalie, she's really helpful. She has turned the tables for me a few times, the 2 times I have used her skill. So yeah, 2 of her. She has proven that she is worth my time putting her in. Then we have 4 copies of my favorite grade 1 who somehow went down in quality. I don't understand why and how, but Marching Debut, Purite. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard during your turn. If you have 3 or more grade 1 or less rear guard, she gets +5. So cool. Easy 13k. Like I said, this deck rushes easily. I think the second you get to grade 2, if you do what I do, you can just get these 2. You can get 2 of these on the board and they're just 26k's column. So that's all around pretty nice. Because, swinging for 26 on the rear guard and then swinging for Vanguard with 23 without the need for triggers to your opponent's Vanguard is really great, especially if they're at grade 1, because then that means each of those are 20k drops. So, all around Purite is really nice in the early game, and then not to mention when we get to Lianorn, her combined with like the 2 other ones that give +5k on boost, give her a total of 52k without triggers. So, alright, I like Purite a lot. She gets me those big numbers that I like, and she works really well in an early game rush, and she does it all for free, so why not run her at a 4 of? Then we have 4 copies of Lively rather than Biara. She's the card that's like, she'll show up when I need her, but then she won't show up if I don't need her. So, at least if I see her, I know I'm going to need her that game. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear when the attack this unit boost hits a Vanguard, put a Great Trellis card from your hand to soul, draw a card. Cool. So this is the most dangerous on high pressure ever. There's been one lesson that I've learned from this. Like I said before, if I need her, she'll show up. If she shows up in my opening hand, that means this game's going to go on for a while and I'm going to run into a soul problem, so I need to call her the second I use her. Like, the second I can start swinging, call her, because she will be the reason I win. So, Biara getting that free soul that's Great Trellis, well, yeah, it kind of does fuck over my hand, because half the time I have to drop triggers for that, especially when she does show up in the early game, and I draw Persona Rides out of it. Yes, it is annoying to have that happen, but it ends up winning me the game, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to be as nearly as aggressive as I want. Typically what it is it starts with her, and then it leads into this, and then I get the draws out of it. So, for Biara, she's kind of the notion that I know I'm gonna need soul this game is if she's the one that shows up. So 4 of her, the on-hit pressure is amazing on the rear guards that it works with. And not to mention the fact that it can get soul and draw for it, so all around good card. I like it a lot. 4 of Biara, she's just amazing. Then we have 4 copies of straight up the best grade 1 in this deck, Performing Petal Diantha, or she would be if I fucking drew her more often. It's the same thing with Bastion, where set 6 was fine, and then set 7, I had 1 or 2 cards. The deck's like consistently gets thrown off. Somehow I see Purite less, and somehow I see this thing less. Anyways, Diantha skill, auto when she's placed on rear guard from hand. If you have a Vanguard that's grade 3 or good, regardless of what their name is, Counter Boss 1 chooses a card that's grade 3 or less from your drop zone, call to rear. Cool. Automatically, like, this is one of the best generic Stoicheia cards ever printed because it's a straight up free call of anything that's a grade 3 or less, and you combine it with Lianorn to Counter Boss 1, draw a card, regardless if this is the card you drew or not, call it, and then counterbossed again, get another card, so effectively you just drew 1 to call 1. So, all around, Diantha is just amazing. I like her skill, and then continues rear guard during turn. If you have 2 or more back or grade 1 less rear guards, 6 plus 5. Okay, typically, that never goes off in the early game. I consider early game, by the way, before I get to grade 3. So, anyways, that's typically never going to go off in the early game. But if it's in the situation where I need to hit, like, for example, like I have Biara in my hand, and it's like, it's either I don't call it or I do call it, I choose to end up calling it just because, like, I really need Biara to go off if she's actually in my hand. So, 4 of Diantha. All around, she's good. The 13k plus is amazing. And then not to mention the fact that she could just get a rear guard for my drop zone regardless is amazing. It just, sometimes I fuck it up because I forget I need to soul boss specific cards for that to be remotely useful. 4 of Diantha, just good card nonetheless. Then we have 1 copy of the Glass Grade 1 in the ride deck, and that is Budding of Pleasant Sounds Gracia. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto is read upon by Brilliant Tune Rektina, we may call this card to rear guard, and then call it continues rear guard during the battle, boost to Vanguard, gets plus 5. Cool that it works generically for any fucking Vanguard, so you know it's a 13k booster regardless. I remember originally when Lianorn first got revealed, I was like, let me put this card in the deck at 4, because remember, we didn't have any support. The same day I did that, this got dropped, and I was like, you know what, yeah, I have no excuse to keep this thing out of 4, because I was thinking about, how am I going to logic to people that it's worth running Gracia out of 4 of in the deck? And I thought about it for a long, hard second, and I was like, I can't. Well, I can in the sense that, you know, it's a free 13k booster as long as it's boosting the Vanguard. I'm fine with giving up 5k for the other units or, like, other better boosters. And then Purite came along, and I was like, yeah, never mind, fuck Gracia. So, all around, Gracia is just a good card because it's a free 13k, and if she's the first one to die, well, so be it. I remember there was a game where she actually did go down because I was playing against Eugene, I think it was, and I had the weirdest time playing because that one rearguard circle fucked me over in the sense that I had to do like a little bit extra cosplay to get that rearguard back. So who knew Gracia somehow is the most important grade 1 in this deck, because that back row center stopping thing actually is really important. So yeah, don't sleep on Gracia, because if she dies, you might have a little bit of trouble like fixing her. At least I know I did, because just the situation I had. So one of Gracia in the ride deck. I have now found respect for her. Then we had 3 copies of this grade 2, which has yet to prove useful. Festoso Dragon. So grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base, items placed on rear guard from hand. If you have a Vanguard of Lianorn, its card name, counter boss 1, look at top 3. Choose to 1 grade 3 less card from one of them, call it to rear guard, it gets boost for the turn, and then discard the rest. Okay, this is not a bad card. It really isn't. Half the time, especially nowadays with this deck, I have plenty of counterblast to spare. So it's not the counterblast that's the issue. The issue is that when I normally play this, I don't end up playing against retired decks. It is a very rare occasion I play against decks that retire my rear guards. And typically, I have a full board, and you all know I don't like calling over shit. So, like, Festoso never gets to go off, especially because most of the time my board just has boost already. Like, it's not that Festoso is bad. In fact, he's in here to get another grade 3 out. The issue is that, you know, if I don't see that grade 3, I effectively wasted a counterblast and lost the top 3 cards of my deck. Festoso's here in that case where if I'm actually playing against a new deck and my board is gone, I need a quick way to get it back. That's where Festoso comes in, because Festoso will end up winning me, like, at least get me something. But quite literally, we have not been in that situation, because the one time I played against a nuke deck, I killed them before they could start nuking my shit, because triple drive with double crits on them is really amazing. So yeah, 3 cards of Festoso. He has a purpose here, he just hasn't been able to show it off yet. But one day he will show off his prowess and why he deserves to be here. 3 of the boy. Then we have our last grade 2, and our only other grade 2. Obviously being in the ride deck and on the main deck of Brilliant Tune Rektina. Grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base, auto is rolled upon by a unit with Lianorn its card name, so boss 1 is a card that's grade 1 or less from your drop zone, call it to rear guard, and then continues back rear guard if you have back row. If your back row has 3 or more rear guards in it, it gets boost. So I used to ran this out of 4 of just because like I wanted that boost, and that was back when like Lianorn didn't have any concrete support. Yeah, now that we have concrete support that actually has booster power, yeah, there's obviously no reason to run her. But that soul boss skill,
you know, it's off and on. Like, you know, sometimes you need to use that skill to get another rear guard because maybe you don't have enough to, like, you know, pump out rear guards evenly, or you already have enough and then you just don't need it, or maybe you willingly discard something important. Point is this, that ability is like, you don't need it, but in some scenarios you do want it. So take that as you will. You don't always need to use it, and the games that I don't use it are typically the games Biara doesn't show up in. In fact, there was one time that she showed up that when that happened, and I actually don't regret that because I would have ran into a slow problem really quickly if I didn't end up using her skill. So all around, Rektina is amazing. I like her skill, getting her that rear guard if you need it, but all around you don't really need it that much because you're probably doing good anyways, even if you have all triggers in hand. So one of them in the right deck of Rektina, because even all triggers can be useful. And then we have our grade 3s. 4 copies of Renaissance Dragon. So grade 3 turn up, Persona Art 13k base. I swear I see a different thing of this every time. I never see the top hat for some reason. Anyways, continues rear guard. If you boosted a total of 3 or more times this turn, get +5. So essentially, swing with Lianorn, it's an instant 18. Great. Cool. And then auto rear. At the end of the battle, he attacked a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard Lianorn's card name, and you boosted 5 or more times, Caraboss 1, put this unit into soul, choose one of your rear guards, and stand it. Okay. Plus, it doesn't have to be a specific grade of rear guard. So if we get a very certain abusable card later on, we get a restand. 2, all those people that are trying to spam Inlet Pulse in their thing, guess what? Now you can spam Inlet Pulse if you want to. Though I have been hearing that people have not been wanting to spam Inlet Pulse in Lianorn, so very interesting. Not like I care, because I'm not going to put Inlet Pulse on my deck anyways, but still. And not to mention the fact that 5 or more times. Now, again I say, 5 or more times. Why are they insinuating there's going to be another time? Because to my knowledge, Lianorn's the deck that boosts the most. And that's sitting at 5. If I'm wrong, someone please correct me. I mean, unless we get board restanders, I guess. And in that case, yeah, technically 6 boosters. But, is Lianorn going to get a board restander? Was I right before when I said, like, we were going to get something that applies during battle phase? Like, I don't know, Superior Lianorn ride that stands the back row and then boost with it? Was I right? Are we getting that next set? And I was just fucking around, but I was right? I doubt it, but, like, the 5 or more, like, kind of paints a clear picture to me that, you know, there's a chance. I mean, unless it's the way for premium, but I highly doubt it. So, 4 Resonance, I want to say Reconnaissance. Resonance Dragon, there we go. All around decent card. That 18k is really easy to get, and not to mention the restand is also really easy to get, and it just gets you sold too, so 4 of. And then we have our last card in the deck, or not last card, sorry, the last unit in the deck. There's one more card after this. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck of Grand March of the Full Bloom Lianorn. Grade 3 turn Persona 13k base, active and once per turn, card boss 1 draw a card, choose a card from your hand, call it to rear guard, discard it. Great. So you either get you get a guaranteed draw, and then if you want to, you can drop that card, or you can just call it. I mean, you don't have to pick the card that you drew, you can pick anything else, which is something I question about that, because that skill is incredibly good when you think about it. Like, I mean, yeah, like, if we were in the old deck where Counterboss was not an issue, I mean, yeah, nowadays Counterboss is like 50-50 an issue, it depends on the situation. But, like, in this deck where Counterboss is like maybe an issue, even if I do use this, you have every right not to call the card you drew. You can just pick something else. So unless your hand is really that bad, you can just call something else. I don't get why that skill is incredibly good. Like, that felt like such a generic skill when you put it on a card, especially when its second skill is the exact same as its original version, except this skill is somehow incredibly good for what it does. And then anyways, auto van, when this unit attacks, Soul Blast 1 and discard 1, and boost all your units with the boost this unit with all your back row stand units with boost, and if this unit is boosted if this unit is boosted by 3 or more units, she gets an extra drive until end of battle, and at the end of the battle, choose back to your back or rear guard and stand them. Okay, cool. So, you know, like I said before, this is along with, like, the 2, typically it's 1 Gracia, nowadays it's 2 Purites, but also on occasion is Diantha with a Purite. That brings her to 52 without Persona Rides. Persona Rides brings her to 62, literally any trigger. There was a game I almost got her to 100. It was on pure accident. I don't know, I think, because it involved, like, it was back when I ran that grade 1 order that gave another +5, so let's add another 15, so I got to 77. Oh yeah, and I sacked 2 triggers, right, yeah, and if I had 1 more trigger, would have been hit fucking 100. But yeah, all around, pretty nice. She always hits really big numbers, and that's something to like too, and then not to mention the fact that she gets those 2 back row rear guards restanding, so it is possible to use this boy again, and then just makes your rear guards bigger. All around, like Lianorn a lot, it gives you trigger targets because you also give them the back row rear guards, and then they just become fucking bigger, and then their columns inherently become bigger. So yeah, just a good card. You get a lot of big numbers. Your opponent's basically PGing every single Vanguard attack, and on occasions the rear guards. It's just great. I love it so much. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck. Don't fuck with Lianorn, and she'll fuck with you in the way you don't want it to be. And then our last card in the deck, this time for real, is 2 copies of Tearful Malice. Grade 2, normal order, play it by retiring 2 rear guards, draw a card, play the soul, counter 1. This essentially just clean up the board, like, just kill my 2 rear guards that I probably don't need right now, or like maybe I have Diantha in hand and I want to do like, you know, board respam of something, so I'll go like Tearful Malice to kill 2 rear guards, because we all know I don't like calling over stuff, just to draw a card and counter charge one of them, shove it to soul. Honestly, that's why it's here. Fuck the soul reason, it's just here just to get that skill off. But anyways, yeah, counter charging one and drawing one is also nice too, you know, increasing the hand a lot. Though I have been like 50-50 on should I run a Fun Marching, because Fun Marching did stupid shit in this deck, and like, granted, it was rare I would draw into it, but like if I drew into it, numbers were going up and logic was thrown out the wazoo, and we just started swinging for games on every single turn. Like even first grade 3 turn was essentially game because of the numbers I would hit. Like you don't have a PG, it's game right then and there. So 2 of Tearful Malice. It's a good order. It's consistent. Draw, counter, soul charge. But yeah, the days that I wanted to relive the moment of Fun Marching shenanigans, maybe I might just put it back. There's a reason why I don't run Decibel, because Decibel is really just a worse version of Hellblast Full Dive from Final Rush. So yeah, 2 of Tearful Malice. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, it is good, consistent, you know, get those rear guards, get big numbers, stand the back row rear guards, get even bigger numbers, get same number of attacks, get extra attack with Renaissance Dragon, Reconnaissance. I cannot say its name now. I used to be able to say Resonance so much, and now I can't say. Oh, cool. So now I can say it when I'm trying to bit about it. Fuck. Okay, either way, deck's fun. It's nice playing. I enjoy playing it, and it just beats the shit out of everything that stands before it. So I'm ending here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.